are here the night after WNBA Fight Night. Sophie Cunningham putting JC Sheldon in a clinch. Marina Mabrey targeting Caitlin
versus Fever game was pure chaos, 6 technicals, 3 ejections, and 2 flagrants. But in the middle of all that madness came the moment that set social media on fire. Marina Mabrey blindsided Caitlin Clark with a shove and somehow stayed in the game, no ejection. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham got tossed, and fans were quick to call out the double standard.
Players fine in that game, but the referees, the scariest part about all this is that the referees came out with their report. They came out with their report and said, the contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level of ejection. Additionally, it did not meet the criteria for a flagrant 2 penalty. And it was given as a technical foul, not even
the game. The league quietly upgrades Mabrey's foul to a flagrant 2. So now the question is, why didn't the refs catch it live? And what made the league step in only after the outrage? Clip 3.
Last 46 seconds where Sophie Cunningham hard fouls JC Sheldon. She gets ejected. JC gets ejected. Does Lindsay? I think Lindsay gets ejected. And, in watching the broadcast, even the broadcasters at the time mentioned if they would have just ejected Marina Mabrey, this probably...
Later, we'll hear exactly why the WNBA overruled its own referees and why the league's fix may have done more harm than good. But first, let's break down how that shove changed everything.
Marina Mabrey doesn't even see what happens and she just decides to clean Caitlin Clark out of it. And the referees just said, nah, it was not worth it.
Right, Marina Mabrey's shove on Caitlin Clark wasn't just another hard foul. It was a moment everyone kept coming back to the play with simple. Clark wasn't looking, and May delivered a blindside shove that sent her crashing to hard with the reaction from the crowd. And the broadcast crew was instant. The refs blew the whistle, but instead of flagrant 2, or even an ejection, they gave Mabrey a technical foul. Broadcasters and players immediately questioned the call, saying it looked like an ejection-worthy cheap shot, even in a game already loaded with technicals and physical play that stood out as something different.
Was getting attacked. Like, she was just standing there. She was standing there. What is she supposed to do? She's protecting herself. She didn't throw hands or anything. She just held it. She didn't punch. She didn't slap, eye gouge. She didn't do any of that. She just held it. All right, so I don't know, man.
Social media exploded. The clip spread within minutes with fans asking, how is this not an ejection? And are the refs even watching? Many felt letting Mabrey stay set the tone for overly physical play and that the refs were losing control. But that sense of confusion only got worse when you looked at how other fouls were handled. Sophie Cunningham, for example, was ejected on the spot for a hard foul that didn't involve a shove or anything as blatant as Mab's hit.
All they had to do was just eject her. All they had to do was eject her, and none of this happens. If the referees had ejected Marina Mabrey, nothing else happens.
Contrast was impossible to ignore. Cunningham was gone immediately, while Mabrey stayed in the game after what looked like a much more dangerous play.
He ended up stating this: Marina Mabrey's technical from last night's Fever Sun game has been upgraded to a flagrant 2. Oh man, the league told ESPN a flagrant 2 comes from a standard fine. Additionally, Sophie Cunningham was fined separately for her hard foul with 46 seconds to play. No players will be suspended. So that's the end result of everything. I think she came down here and said something as well. And to this point, neither coach has been fined for their post-game criticism over the officials.
Fans and analysts kept pointing out the inconsistency. If the refs had been applying the rules the same way, Mabrey would have been out of the game just like Cunningham. Instead, the decision felt random and left everyone questioning what the standard really was. The controversy didn't cool off after the final buzzer. That's when the WNBA stepped in and changed their decision.
The hypocrisy, everywhere in all the spaces when it comes to the Indiana Fever, because I'm seeing the same people saying, and the same people in the media, the same people in social media, which social media doesn't really count and it shouldn't, but these are filtering to people in the mainstream media saying it was a physical league last season to Sophie should be ejected and her spot should be considered in the league, and calling her out on all these physical plays that were totally excusable until the Indiana Fever do them.
That's right. They announced that after reviewing the play, McRae's technical will be upgraded to a flagrant 2. If that call had been made during the game, McRae would have been ejected on the spot. No questions asked. The league also fined her by admitting the live call was wrong. The league fan outrage. Instead of calming it, fans saw this as proof that the officiating crew had missed something obvious, and it only made the inconsistency look worse.
Coming after the game, and then now you're saying, oh, it should have been a flagrant 2. Oh, we should have. Look, you're catching the smoke, and now you want to change it. You need to do it during the game. All right, during the game, go ahead and call it the way it is, man.
The league's explanation was that maybe shove met the criteria for excessive force and should have resulted in a flagrant 2, but that just raised more questions. Why wasn't it called that way in the moment? The play was right in front of the officials, clear as day. Even neutral viewers were left scratching their heads, wondering how something so blatant could be missed. Was it just a bad judgment call? Or does the WNBA have a bigger problem with what counts as fair play?
I've never seen a technical upgraded to a flagrant 2 before. I've never seen that happening before. Like, it wasn't even called a flagrant 1. It was a tech upgraded to a...
It wasn't the only head scratcher from a game either. Clark herself got a technical for reacting after being poked in the eye. Cunningham was hit with an upgraded foul and fined. Even though her play looked less dramatic than Mabrey's, it all added up to a game where the rules seemed to change from one moment to the next. If Mabrey had been ejected when she should have been a whole game, might have played out differently. Instead, the upgrade came too late to matter.
Not rise to the level of an ejection. Additionally, it did not meet the criteria for a flagrant foul penalty 2.
Fans, players, and coaches asking the same thing. How can anyone trust a system if the calls aren't consistent? The disconnect between what happens during the game and what the league decides afterward just adds more confusion. And the most revealing part, the officials and the league couldn't even agree on what happened. That's where the real debate starts.
Statement saying, yeah, it was a flagrant 2.
So let's get to the real question. Who's actually responsible for this mess? The referees on the court or the league that stepped in after the fact? The spotlight turned right on to referee Ashley Gloss, who explained after the game that Marina Mabrey's foul did not rise to the level of an ejection and did not meet the criteria for a flagrant foul penalty 2. That's why the refs called a technical on Mabrey and moved on. Listen to this.
The referees need some schooling, man. Okay? They need some schooling. You had these referees out here clueless, man. And I was wondering what was taking them so long to call the right call. I swear to you, man, we lived 2 lifetimes before they came back and said what they needed to say about the nonsense.
But just hours later, the WNBA overruled its own crew, officially upgrading the foul to a flagrant 2. That's not just a correction, it's a public contradiction. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, how can a play go from not enough for an ejection to the kind of hit that gets you tossed? Out with this statement saying, yeah, it was a flavor too. Fans jumped on it right away as soon as the league's announcement dropped. Social media feeds blew up with clips, commentary, and a whole lot of confusion. If the rules are supposed to be clear, why do the refs and the league see the same play so differently? The league's moved in just leave Gloss and her crew in a tough spot. It made people wonder if the WNBA is running its games by the rule book or just reacting to backlash. Is this about getting it right or just trying to make the noise go away after the fact?
Technical foul. She ended up coming back and saying, after the foul by Sheldon, Clark reacted in an unsportsmanlike manner toward Sheldon. Huh?
The game itself was already wild. 6 technical fouls, 3 ejections, and a string of calls that everyone on edge. The technical on Caitlin Clark stood out. She got hit with unsportsmanlike behavior after reacting to being poked in the eye, and JCS Sheldon bumped her chest on a dead ball. Listen to this.
I'm still questioning that. I'm still questioning because it looked like a take foul, fam. And don't tell me y'all never seen somebody grab LeBron James, like hold him like both of his arms, try to hold him down. He fights through it, still makes the bucket. Don't tell me y'all never seen that.
So there's a Cunningham situation. Sophie Cunningham was tossed for a flagrant 2 on JCS Sheldon. And after the league reviewed it, they added another fine on top. Meanwhile, Mabrey's more blatant shove was just a technical live. That kind of inconsistency is what keeps fueling the fire. If you're watching, you're left asking how one player gets ejected and fined for a hard foul while another stays on the court after more obvious hit.
I would do whatever the hell they want to do. As long as bad referees can get away with every single thing they want and can get away with stuff like this, nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever change.
So what pressures are refs under when they're making split-second calls in front of 10 to 15 times more viewers than a typical WNBA game? Keep listening for the refs' own defense. The sheer volume of penalties and the way they were handed out only made things worse. Sometimes the refs seemed quick to pull the trigger. Other times they missed calls that the league later admitted were wrong. It's hard for anyone to trust the system when the standards seem to shift from play to play or even after the final buzzer.